if a child turns out to be an emotional caregiver for the parent, the child is not in their position. Parent is here, child is meant to be here. All of a sudden, the child is given emotional support, so they move into this position. So they're not in their own position, and so they can't receive the love from their parent in that position. Here they can. And so what happens is, if they're up here, they feel like an imposter a lot of times. They don't feel like they can be their authentic self.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Teen Talks. Once again, we are joined by a very special guest who we met at the Global Youth Leadership Summit. Please welcome Christian Lolies. Christian, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Christian Lolies. I'm a certified family and systemic constellations facilitator. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Systemic Lens. Systemic Lens, we help organizations create or optimize their group dynamics for optimized group dynamics and harmonious leadership.
Awesome. Very
Wow.
cool. Can you kind of explain you talked about constellation healing? Is that what you said? Yeah. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So Family Constellations is a healing modality. It's considered a therapeutic approach to helping individuals or families or groups heal reoccurring patterns or emotional challenges that may have been passed on over generations. So intergenerational trauma is something that we hear a lot, and family constellations is a specific modality that allows us to identify which patterns may have been carried forward. And with family constellations, we have interventions that allows us then to root cause those patterns and then heal them so that the group or the individual can have a more harmonious way of going forward and more harmonious relationships going forward.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that before. Never heard about this sort of way of doing it, which is really interesting.
It's a really fast-growing healing modality. It's recently gotten a lot of advertising in there was a book that came out that featured on Oprah Winfrey's recommended book list, which was called It Didn't Start With You, which is a really good book, which explains family constellations concept. And then also there's a Netflix series. They just released a second series, which has been gaining a lot of attention as well, which is called Another Self. And it's a drama based in Turkey, which basically shows how family constellations also works, which is
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll need to put those in the show notes, I think, because
Yeah.
it makes me want to go watch it and learn more,
Yeah.
I really do believe that we need new modalities, because I think the traditional talk therapy, going into your past and rehashing everything, is not necessarily the best way for everyone to heal.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because traditional therapy is a one-to-one setting, and I did the way I found family constellations is I basically went down the rabbit hole of do my own therapy, and I did one-to-one therapy, which was really effective. But then eventually I found family constellations, and family constellations was even more effective, I found, because in family constellations, you can work one-to-one, but you can also a lot of people work in groups. So as a facilitator, I will host a group session, and then people will come to my group setting, and these people a lot of times don't know each other. And whoever wants to explore their reoccurring destructive patterns or emotional challenges, they will sit next to the facilitator, me in this case, and we will explore what those challenges are, and I will ask them to pick people out of the group, random people, to represent some of their family members.
I see.
And what happens is these people who represent are able to mirror back information to the client that they may have not been aware of, or they may have suppressed, maybe some emotional patterns that maybe they looked away on. And in this group setting, and it's strangers, a lot of times, the client can see symbolically what is happening, and that image can be really, really impactful on a lot of layers for the client.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does this modality work like within families? Like, do families go in, or maybe like parents and their kids, or even like, I don't know, maybe even like just relationships, like the adults, like does that work as well?
Yes, I mean you can do it. You can have entire families come and do it. A lot of times, I would recommend that it's people do it individually themselves,
Mm.
because I've had a situation where I worked with a family, and um, it's difficult. It's a little bit more challenging because people maybe don't want to give out all the information, because there's some basic principles within a family that people are very loyal to each other,
Mm.
and families a lot of times have secrets, and there's two pushes in the family that happen usually unconsciously. Some people want to reveal the secrets for the betterment of the family, and then some people want to hide the secrets because also they're loyal, and they don't want to expose the family. And so if I'm working with a family directly, it's a little more difficult to get to the details, because people are a little bit loyal unconsciously, and they don't reveal everything that's coming up for them. But that's why I recommend more individuals to do it individually. And it's amazing because a lot of times I may have parents that do it, and the parents, they have children, and of course they have their own parents, but they will work on their own issues that are coming up for them, and it has such a ripple effect, because emotionally whatever they were carrying may vanish from them when they see symbolically what's really happening. They may make peace in that moment, and energetically that weight may be lifted off them, and there may not be needed any communication with any other family members. Energetically, the relationship is restored.
Wow.
We
So
see
that
some-
would be
Interesting.
for like, let's just say that the parent had an issue with their parents, and then they go through that, and then that changes the relationship between them and their own children.
That happens a lot of times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's
we
so
carry
close.
around that energy and that baggage and stuff, and we don't realize we're putting that on our kids.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. So how did you, I want to kind of dive into your story now, Christian. Like, how did you get into something like this? Like, what is your story? What led you to getting into this field?
Yeah. So I'll start from the very beginning. I was born in Germany, to a German father and Irish mother. And so we lived there until I was 11. And there was a lot of tension at home, and to escape the tension, I would go outside and be outside as much as possible. We grew up in a very socially deprived neighborhood in the city of Frankfurt. And so I was surrounded by, a lot of gangs and violence and stuff. And so I would play football or soccer as much as possible to really escape all of that. And that's where my heart was really early on. And I became really good at soccer, and I went to an Olympic athletic school in Germany. And that really taught me a lot about discipline and about perseverance, and about being in touch with my creativity. And when I was 11, we moved to Ireland, and I was really, really glad that we moved to Ireland, because it gave me a chance to get to know my mother's side of the family, my Irish lineage. After a few years in Ireland, I dropped out of football. I fell out of love with the sport. It just didn't feel fun for me anymore. I felt like I was playing it to prove myself, constantly just prove myself. And it was a difficult time for me at that time. I was about 15, and there was still tension at home. So I was back outside, and I started then dabbling in alcohol and drugs and so forth. And it wasn't until I was 19 when I barely finished high school, and I sought out. I knew I had to make a change. I had to do something different. So I left home, and I found a job, and within a couple of years, I started getting my confidence back, and I became a leader. I became a manager. And then I went on and to work for Amazon corporate and have a 11-year Amazon corporate career, which brought me to the US. So I worked in Seattle at the global headquarters for Amazon for 10 years in Seattle. Previous to that, I was for a year or 2 years in London at the corporate office. And so my background was really, my majority of my adult background was in business, in corporate business, and in tech, and in e-commerce. And while I was working at Amazon, I'd amassed a lot of wealth, and I thought I had everything materially, but really inside, I was really, what I was doing over that time, I was trying to I was running away from the suppressed emotions that I couldn't deal with that I was exposed to as a child. And so I was trying to basically fill up imagine a bottomless cup with, all this material wealth. And it was like, it was never really filling up. I was unable to really receive the love that was really all around me. I was just chasing this material wealth. And so it wasn't until I left Amazon that I started doing therapy and really facing the emotions that I didn't face as a child. And I did a lot of different therapies. I did one-to-one cognitive behavioral therapy. I did amazing water therapy, which is called Watsu, which mimics your experience in the womb. I did, I went on self-discovery journeys, hiking in the mountains in Mount Rainier for 11 days and on my own, and started getting into yoga. And it wasn't until I found Family Constellations, which was so impactful for me to really make peace with my entire past, and to really understand that a lot of the patterns that I picked up were patterns that existed many generations before me and the generations that came before me, basically.
Many generations.
Many, like, it's not that long ago, there was many world wars, right, that happened, right? And sometimes these things weren't really properly processed or dealt with. And yeah, through Family Constellations, it really helped me. It helped me to really not judge anything, right? To be really humble and grounded, and understand that everything that I was exposed to is really part of me, and that it's my responsibility to make the best out of it, and to really
Oh, generations had formed you. Generations.
Yes.
I mean, we all have this. I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And so I love this work so much that I decided to get certified as a Family Constellations facilitator. And now it's something that I do. I share this work with others who face similar challenges to help them overcome these traumatic intergenerational
I was as you were telling your story, it made me think, you said at like 15, you got into drugs and alcohol and things like that with probably the wrong crowd, right? But then at 19, you made a decision that wasn't you. Do you have a feeling, is there something that made you go, do that switch to go, no, I'm not going to go this path? Because I'm sure there's a lot of teenagers that we, out there do that, but they don't make that switch. So what do you think made that switch?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was I really hit rock bottom. I suffered an overdose, a drug overdose.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I knew I had to change, because the path that I was on, it was, it was going the wrong way, basically. And yeah, you know, it's a couple of years before that, my uncle passed away. He committed suicide,
Mm.
and you know, there's so many things that happen in our family, and you know, that perhaps sometimes we don't understand that unconsciously we may be repeating. That's what I learned through family constellations. But at that point, I knew I had to make a change. And like, yeah, I was in the wrong environment. I was really low on confidence. And you know, I really believed I had these like limiting beliefs that I wasn't worthy or that I wasn't good enough. And which was not true, you know, because I
Yes.
found out later on when I did commit myself and I went into a new environment. I found a job and I was in a new environment and I started performing at a higher level. My belief started coming back, you know, and it just showed me that like the environments that I was in before shaped beliefs in me that weren't true, you know.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so I had to really make that jump into a new environment to adopt new beliefs, which then shaped, you know, a new motivation in me.
Wow.
Wow.
Environment
It
is key, isn't it?
Yes.
It really
it
is.
is
Who you
it's
surround
everything.
yourself with. Yeah. As we all know
Yeah.
from GYLS, and that's one of the things they teach the kids, right?
Yeah.
Who you, and that's,
Speaking,
yeah,
yeah, sorry to cut you off, Susan.
it's okay.
Speaking of GYLS, I remember like just the interactions that I would have with Christian. He's so peaceful. Like he's such a
Yes.
peaceful person, right?
Hmm.
He's so calm. It's very zen. And there's like a quote, and it goes along the lines of like, the people who show up like in the most peaceful way are usually those who have gone through a lot in their past and have been through a lot.
Mm.
Um, and I think like you can see when you're telling us your story, Christian, like everything that you have been through in your life, and to just see how you present yourself now, it's like I'm sure a lot of work and time and effort has gone into it, but to see where you are now, it's so cool to just know like even though you can go through really hard times, that does not dictate where you will end up in a negative way. Like it means that you can still work on yourself, you can still figure out ways, there are solutions to find that inner peace and to be peaceful. And I just love that you represent that in such a cool way.
Thank you.
Um,
And you had to do it yourself. You
Yeah.
had to take the initiative and the steps to make that happen. And I think a lot of us think that the environment we're thrown into is what we have to accept, and that it's just it's like there's nothing I can do about it. I'm in this environment, or I grew up this way and I can't change just because they think it's in them.
Yeah. It was, you know, and some of these things I'm still learning as I'm an adult, right? Like
Yeah.
really I only recently started really learning or understanding really deeper myself that like, you know, I was a very sensitive kid. I was really sensitive, emotionally sensitive, you know,
Hmm.
um, which is now my gift. But in the past, it was really difficult because, you know, I was just aware of everybody's emotions in a room. And I was probably very suggestible as well because of that. And because of that, you know, it was difficult for me to deal with these difficult emotions because I didn't know how to deal with them.
Hmm.
And so what was the answer as a child back then was, okay, I need to suppress my emotions. I need to close down,
mm,
right? And when I went into the corporate career, I was like really laser focused on just like, you know, creating wealth, creating something different than what I experienced. And I shut down all my emotions. But as a leader, when I was in leadership positions in the corporate world, people couldn't connect with me because I was not emotionally available.
Mm. Yeah.
mm,
And so, you know, I got successful because I was a great executor at, you know, just laser focus, get stuff done. And I came from running away from, you know, the difficult times. And then I hit a ceiling in a corporate world where there was a certain level I couldn't grow anymore because as a leader, emotionally, people couldn't really follow me anymore.
Yeah.
And it was then when I left the corporate world, I understood that, oh, I'm a sensitive person, and actually it's a gift. And I just need to understand how to open my heart, be in the world with an open heart. But that means I need to have stronger boundaries.
Mm.
Boundaries,
So
huge, yes.
I had to really learn that okay, it's okay to be sensitive, but you need to learn how to set boundaries. And so that was a big learning for me. And I'm still kind of working on it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to draw a parallel to parenting with what you just said, because you pretty much, if and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that you felt disconnected with yourself, which made it harder for other people to connect with you, right? I feel like a lot of times, when parents are trying to connect with their kids, they've gone through this whole thing of they've only been thinking about their kids for such a long time, they've forgotten a bit of who they are, right? And it's like that tunnel vision where it's just like, okay, I have to focus on my kids, like making sure that everything is taken care of, blah, blah, blah. And they don't give themselves the time to connect with themselves. Um, and then it almost like flips around where now they're no longer able to connect with their kids because they don't even know who they are anymore,
Yeah,
or they've
that's so true.
forgotten who they are,
So
right?
true.
So I want to ask a question, like what helped you reconnect with yourself, Christian? Like what was it that really kind of helped you just figure out that, once again, yes, I am a sensitive person, but that is a gift. Like where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I left corporate, it was a difficult time for me because my entire identity was based on this career. And
Mm.
so then it was like, okay, like what is going on? Like this is my career is gone. Like, so what does that mean for who I am and what? And so I had to go down this journey of I started doing like yoga and meditation and my therapist at the time, she suggested like I had some time off, and she was like, I was telling her like, yeah, I have all these plans for my time off, and I'm gonna do this, and then she's like, why don't you do nothing for a while?
Do
And I was
nothing.
like, yeah, and I was like, what?
Yeah. What?
Like, what do you mean? Like, she's like, no, just do nothing for a few weeks or longer. Just sit there with yourself and be with yourself and really be with yourself, right? And slow down. And so I took her advice and I did it. And it really, that was the start of me to really starting to go inwards and because I would never actually spend so much time on my own because I didn't feel comfortable on my own, right? And
Mm.
so, like, I know your question was for parents, and parents don't have that luxury that I'm talking about to take that time, right, for
Yeah.
themselves. But that was my experience. I had to really take that time and get to know myself and
Mm.
just go inwards. But I think, what I see as a family constellations facilitator is that um, it is, and we touched on this a lot of times. It's really emotional baggage that was just passed on that we've just kind of put aside, and it just comes out because in a day-to-day, especially if a parent is so busy, right? The schedule is packed. They're bringing kids from here to there and so forth, and it's in this day-to-day where it's so busy that the old patterns are just reused and reused and reused. And the I think I also coached kids soccer, youth soccer, and so I've experienced dealing with kids. But I think what I learned a lot is like kids are such great mirrors.
Yes, they
And
are.
yeah, they're such great mirrors. And also from Family Constellations, what I learned is that in a group of kids, or any group, even adults, it's important to listen to the rebel, because the rebel is trying to tell you something that has a larger meaning. And so instead of, a lot of times we just see the rebellious action and we want to like cut off the rebellious action, like you're bad for doing this, da da da. But when we take a step back and go, okay, what is this person trying to tell us with this behavior? What is there's something larger at play. And so that's my experience, that from Family Constellation specifically, that I think we can learn a lot more when we just listen a little bit deeper.
And I think, and what you said about the rebel is, I've been a teacher for 35 over years, and you've got the kid in the classroom who's the rebel, who's always fighting you on everything. It's because something's going on inside, and we just want to shut them down because they're disturbing the class. But I had this experience recently where I hadn't taught a class in a while because of COVID and everything, and I did an in-person class, and I had this one kid who just had to like destroy everything. Like he would just, I'm trying to teach and he'd talk over me, or he just wanted attention. So he would, say things to get everybody to laugh and that kind of stuff. It drove me insane. But at the end, what I did is I tried to focus, what is he needing right now? Why is he doing this? And instead I did my best. I can't say I was perfect at this, but I really tried to compliment him when he did things that were helping, or if and it changed it somewhat, not totally, but it changed it, and it made him, and I was interested in what he was doing and interested in what he thought about. And that changed the whole dynamic of his relationship to me. So sometimes I could just give him a look and he knew what I was trying to say and he would, respond. Whereas if I didn't try to connect with him and figure out what is it he needs and what is it he turns him on, he would have continued to just, and nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, after the class was over, at the end, they all had to perform a speech. Parents came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, what did you do? He actually wanted to do the work. What did you do?" And I'm like, I just showed interest. I listened. I cared.
Yeah. You included him.
I included him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like a lot of times we're quick to exclude, and it makes it worse.
Yes.
And if you can find a way to include and be creative in how we include, and it actually has a great effect on the group.
Does.
And the rebel is really an expression of something that's going on in the group. The rebel usually actually, they're misunderstood because we feel like that the rebel is acting on behalf of the group a lot of times. They're trying to express something that's going on in a group. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as parents, we need to also be aware of that as well, because I had 3 kids and, there's one kid that's always stirring the pot. It's like, well, why is that? Instead of getting mad at them all the time, try to connect and listen, like you're saying.
Yeah. Just on Family Constellations, there are 3 main principles. I'll just go through them quickly. One is that every group or every family system, it's important that everybody's included. When somebody's excluded, this creates destructive patterns unconsciously down below, because there's such a loyal pull that everybody's included. So it's really important that everybody's included. If somebody's excluded, it creates more tension.
So would that be like a team, like creating a sort of a family team environment? Like we're all together as a team? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, sometimes in families there's like there's an uncle that was an alcoholic that doesn't get invited anymore, right, to family dinners because they're maybe embarrassed. And so that's an exclusion, right? And that creates unconsciously, that creates feelings of some kind of, that a descendant a lot of times will maybe even identify as them to make the system whole again.
Oh, wow.
That's what we see a lot. Yeah.
The
second is that the balance of exchange, of give and take, is equal, except if there's an exception. If in a normal hierarchy, like the parents and children, it's not equal. The parents give and the children take. But otherwise, it should always be equal. The give and take should always be equal, except the parents give and the children take. And sometimes in families, this gets reversed. Yeah, that the parents lean on the children for emotional support.
Wow.
And so that's an energetic imbalance of the give and take. And so that's going back to your point, Rehan. That happens a lot. The question you had earlier about, you know, parents maybe not being too sure, right? Like of how the disconnection with their child is. It can be sometimes that their parents leaned on them emotionally, and so they're doing it to their children, and it's so unconscious.
Yeah.
And it puts a lot of weight on the child, and as a result, the child feels difficulty to receive the love from others outside because they had to show up for their parents as an emotional caregiver.
Oh,
They
wow.
weren't able to receive the love.
Wow. Mind blowing. That's
Christian, I want to ask that before you go into the third one. This is like I guess a bit of a, like for me, when that I'm asking the question, what are the negative, like what are the consequences of that reversal if the parents are leaning on the kids for that emotional support? What are the consequences for, I guess, the parents and the kids? What happens there?
But it's yeah, it's exactly that. Like the child will grow up later on in life and then have that same dynamic in their relationship with their partner, where maybe they're in a codependent relationship with their partner, where they need their partner to give them love, to feel love themselves, but that puts a lot of pressure on a partner, and it creates friction. And it's so unconscious because they're doing it like in ways of like, you know, it's hidden, you know, like I'm calling you more, or I'm asking you to do more of this, right? Like it's in these ways this energetic exchange is happening, and it's that's an expression of it. Or then they have children and they do something similar, right, where they lean on the child as an emotional caregiver, and so those are the expressions that we see, or that they can't receive the love from outside. You know, there's love all around them, they don't know how to receive it because they were more experienced in having to give it to survive.
wow.
It's very interesting.
So much.
Yeah.
It's Okay, so number 3. Or did you
what's
want to
number
keep
3?
Number
That's
3 is
number
that the hierarchy should always be respected. Every group setting has a hierarchy. In the family, it's very clear. It's, you know, whoever came first, right? The great-great-grandparents, grandparents, the parents, the children, and it's clear hierarchy, right? And if that hierarchy respected, then the flow of love, the orders of love can go freely, and everybody feels empowered. The hierarchy is respected. Now, when the hierarchy, what does it mean if the hierarchy is not respected? It goes back to the previous example of the give and take is upside down, and so then the hierarchy is disrupted. And so if a child turns out to be an emotional caregiver for the parent, the child is not in their position. They're like, the parent is here, child is meant to be here. All of a sudden, the child is given emotional support, so they move into this position. So they're not in their own position, and so they can't receive the love from their parent in that position. Here they can. And so what happens is, if they're up here, they feel like an imposter a lot of times. They don't feel like they can be their authentic self. Why? Because they're not in their position. They're entangled, right? And so every group has a hierarchy. And you see that also in teams, right? Soccer teams, right? If the coach is disrespected, right? There's the captain, for example, he starts disrespecting the coach, or one of the players disrespect the captain. And it creates all these weird dynamics unconsciously, right? But if the hierarchy is respected, then the flow of information and empowerment is really there. So the one is everybody's included. 2, the exchange of give and take, and then 3, the hierarchy. And then there's a fourth, which is basically every group has a need to evolve. So we always evolve, but there's one part of the group that wants to be loyal and stay the same, and one part of the group that wants to evolve. So there's always this conflict a lot of times in groups, so.
And in a family, I'm thinking that position, that evolution will change when when a kid becomes a teenager and adolescence, when they're now, entering this space where they want to be more themselves rather than being the kid anymore. And they want to have a little more skin in the game as far as in the family, making decisions and things like that.
Yes.
That would be where that starts to play.
Yeah, exactly. Like an example is like, there's a pattern in a family that, the son goes on to become a doctor. And so then, that's the pattern, right? And to be loyal, they do that, right? But maybe they're not really being authentic in doing that, right? But they're doing it to be loyal. And so,
Oh,
what is happening in a way is like the family is not evolving because they're being loyal and just repeating it. Because the
I
world
have
is
to be a
evolving.
doctor because my dad was a doctor, or my whatever, that kind of thing, instead of
Yeah.
doing actually what they really want.
Yes, that's just an example. Or, you will have the rebel is an expression of that evolution, because the rebel is a lot of times the rebel will maybe reveal family secrets, right? Like they will maybe, talk bad about like things that happened, destructive things that happened in the family. And this rebel will draw, the anger from other family members because they're revealing stuff, right? And so it's this conflict of evolution. The rebel wants to reveal the secrets, so for the betterment of the family. But the other side of the family, they're so loyal unconsciously that they want to keep the secrets hidden because they're so loyal to their own family, right? And so, yeah, the evolution can express itself in different ways, but there's this constant battle of evolving and staying the same.
Wow.
Yeah, and we see it in the world too.
Yes. Yes. World dynamics for sure.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, Christian, you also talked about like the balance and imbalance of energy, right? So for example, in a dynamic where the kids are the emotional support for the parents, then that creates an imbalance. So to fill that balance, if I've understood correctly, to fill that void or whatever, then that that individual will lean on their partner or then their kids in the future to make up for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that could be
Okay.
a case. Yeah, or even like in my case, career, right? Like, yeah, there could be different ways we fill that void we couldn't receive.
Yeah, because you left the country, so you weren't even near them, your family anymore.
Yeah, but yeah, specifically in relationships, that's where we see it the most. Yeah, it has the biggest effect.
Yeah. Is there an abundance of that energy within us, or is that energy within us limited? Like, is it possible, for example, for there to be an imbalance, but then for an individual to almost work on themselves to bring that balance back within, or is it something that they genuinely have to think about and change things in their habits and the way that they interact with people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've seen it expressed in different ways. You can fix it within yourself, right? I mean, if your parents make the changes, right, and you don't feel that weight anymore, I mean, that's great for you, right? Like, it has a ripple effect. But sometimes later on, as adults, even that relationship dynamic may still be like that they're still leaning on you, just unconsciously. And the key here is unconscious. It's unconscious, right? Like, a lot of people don't know it happened for so many generations. They're just repeating something. And the key also is no judgment. If we want to heal, there has to be no judgment, and we have to. The key is also we accept the gift of life from our parents, and we don't judge their parenting, because when we judge, we put ourselves above again. So we can place ourselves above too, and so we don't want to do that, because when we place ourselves above, you know, we can become grandiose and stuff like that. But yeah, we can fix it ourselves, but sometimes we have to leave the dynamic. Sometimes we have to step away and go, we have to create the boundaries.
Right. That's where boundaries come in. Yeah. So as a parent, just, you know, if other than going to someone like you, if a parent is aware that now they become aware, which we talk about a lot, about self-awareness is key, because if you're not aware, then you can't do anything about it. But let's say a parent becomes aware, oh my gosh, I've been putting this stuff that I now realize is from the past, from my maybe the way I was parented. What would be a move? Would it be like find some time to just be by yourself and really look at what you're doing and how it's affecting your children? Because as they become teenagers, everything starts to get ramped up. They're either going to go away from you or they're going to pull closer or whatever, based on what you've been doing. And so let's say a parent comes into teenagerhood with their children and the teens are rebelling, or they're not listening, or they're just they're not connecting anymore, which is very common. Now they have the time, I think, a little more so, to work on themselves, because they don't have to be 24/7 on their kids all the time. At least they shouldn't be at that age. What would you suggest they do other than go get therapy? But just personally, what would you suggest they do?
Connect with their, I mean, it sounds simple, but and it's connect with their heart, right? If they can have some time and really, you know,
do nothing.
Yeah, I think, you know, maybe understand, maybe, okay, if they become aware, right, of like, okay, maybe there was a dynamic here where I'm putting a lot of pressure on the kid, but I'm maybe not fully aware how I'm doing it, right? Like maybe that's an awareness that comes up. I think it's always good to see how was it for me, you know, and if I make peace with it going back, that should make peace going forward.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's making peace with what happened before that then clears the way going forward.
Removing judgment, removing blame, and
Yes.
forgiveness.
Yes.
Right.
And yeah, removing blame and judgment. And in family constellations, they say like we're not in a position to forgive our parents. That would be presumptuous.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they created us, so that's not our position to forgive them. We came from them, so we have to accept what they gave us, and then make the best going forward to take ultimate responsibility. But yeah, and that can be hard for people, but it's key, because you know they carried us and they created us, and we came from them, and we wouldn't be here without them.
True. Very true. Yeah. This is fascinating.
Yeah. I want to keep talking about this. I'm like, whoa. I love it.
Wow.
That was awesome, Christian. Is there anything else that you want to share? I know that you have some exciting things that are coming up. You're traveling a bit. Maybe you want to share that, or if we want to share where people can find you, where they can reach out to you.
For sure. Yeah. Because
just
some
go for it.
might say, yes, I'm in. I need this. There's stuff that we got to take care of and I need help. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I really recommend people checking out Family Constellations. It's amazing modality, you know, and even if you don't feel ready to participate in a therapeutic session, you can just go and observe, or just read about it. I think it's fascinating. I think it's amazing that, you know, we can be keepers of the gate. We can stop the intergenerational trauma from getting passed on. And so I find that really, really powerful.
Yes.
And it's never too late. And, you know, if we can do it without judgment and open our hearts, you know, it can have a massive ripple effect. People can find me on, if you want to follow my journey. I'm currently studying yoga and tantra, and I'm going to India for a couple of months.
Wow.
You can follow me on Chris Lolies on Instagram. So my handle there is Chris Lolies on Instagram.
Yeah,
If
we'll
you
put it in the
want,
show notes.
if you want to reach out to me directly, you can reach me on Instagram, or you can also, on my website is systemiclens.com. And my website is set up for individual therapeutic family constellations sessions, but also I also help organizations and businesses to create better group dynamics and diagnose, get rid of politics and
Mhm.
destructive patterns. So yeah, you can find me if you want to know more about that on systemiclens.com.
Okay. Wow.
Awesome. We'll put
Yeah.
all of that stuff in the description of either the video or the podcast if you're listening to us on Spotify or somewhere else. But awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so great having you. And
Yeah.
now I know why GYLS is a mission of yours. It's near and dear to all our hearts because
Yes.
of it's changing lives. And you know, the work we do through there is amazing. And then the work you do on your own is just, you know, that's where the mission starts, is just wanting to heal and help people. And yeah, so
Yeah, I agree. GYLS has connected us, and it's a beautiful, beautiful organization. And I'm so glad that I found it, and we got connected with you guys, which prompted this conversation, which I really enjoyed.
yes. All
Yeah.
right.
Learned so much. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian. And yeah, everyone go check him out. Everything will be in the description. Thank you for tuning in and for joining us today. Feel free to like, comment as well if you have any questions. If you have any questions for Christian, just reach out to him like he said. Subscribe or follow the podcast, subscribe to the channel on YouTube.
Share
And yeah, we'll
if
see
you
you
like
next
this, share it
Friday.
with the people you know, because this is
Share
pretty
with everyone,
fascinating
yeah. That's so
information.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next
Um,
week, we will bring on another guest who we've met at GYLS, who will share more amazing insights into how you can best be for your family. And yeah, it's exciting. I love this stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. And
Having
yeah,
me.
to all the viewers and listeners, appreciate you all.
Yes.
Peace.
Bye.